Igor Tudor has been sacked by Tottenham Hotspur, and to be honest, is this really surprising news? Let's break down his time at Tottenham. The stats show 44 days in charge, never managed in the Premier League before, 7 matches, 1 win in all competitions, 1 draw, 0 wins in the league. The hiring of Igor Tudor by Spurs has been a massive mistake, and at the time I was surprised that he was hired because I was expecting Tottenham to go for someone who had experience in the Premier League. So it was an outsider's choice and a left field choice. Yes, he's managed at Marseille, Juventus, but he hasn't lasted long at these clubs. And that's a trend that I'm going to get into because since 2018, he hasn't lasted a full year at the clubs he's managed. And this includes Udinese twice, Hellas Verona, Marseille, and Juventus like I mentioned just now, and Lazio. And according to the graphic on the screen right now, he has at least a 50% win rate in 3 of these spells, but he's only ever managed at these clubs for less than a year before leaving or being sacked. So these stats are potentially inflated or misleading. And for Tottenham, has Igor Tudor ever managed, when he's gone in charge of these clubs, were those clubs in a relegation battle when he took charge? Udinese potentially. I don't watch Serie A or Ligue 1, but Udinese, were they in a relegation battle? I'm not sure. Were Hellas Verona in a relegation battle? I'm not sure. Marseille and Juventus surely weren't in a relegation battle or relegation type of situation when he took charge. So I don't know why they thought that Igor Tudor could be the guy to transform their fortunes. Now, okay, he has an instant impact and whatnot, but were those clubs in a relegation battle at that time? Did they have players whose mentality is as bad as the Tottenham players ones right now? It's not a plug in and play sort of situation here. Has he managed clubs who were previously in a relegation battle, managed to get them to survive, and then go on to build something? No, he hasn't. But just because he hasn't managed in the Premier League before doesn't mean he couldn't be a success. However, the situation that Tottenham have right now, the situation they find themselves in, they need a manager with Premier League experience, but they decided to go with a left field choice, and that choice was Igor Tudor. But before I go further, I do have to send my condolences to him because he lost his father recently or maybe even just before the Nottingham Forest match. And whether he was expecting this news or not, it wouldn't have helped. And maybe him leaving or being sacked or whatever you want to call it is best for him because that allows him to focus on grieving, focus on his family, and not having to worry about the whole Tottenham situation and the toxic environment that is right now. So hopefully he's able to grieve properly and be with his family and be ready for whatever his next move is, whether it's in football, whether he's just going to just chill or do something else. But yeah, send my condolences to him. But as for Tottenham, they've messed up and wasted 6 weeks of the season hiring a manager, which to me was a risky gamble. Have the injuries helped? No, they haven't. Have the red cards helped? No, they haven't. I'm pretty sure there was a 2-game sequence where Romero got a red card and then obviously suspended for the next game, and then Van de Ven got a red card or whatever just when Romero was coming back or something like that. So those obviously haven't helped. But at the end of the day, there were probably multiple managers that could have done a better job than Tudor and would have had a sort of higher chance of success than Tudor. The main man, Sean Dyche, could he have potentially done a better job? Or maybe Thomas Frank staying on, not being sacked, giving him another few games. Could he have gotten Tottenham out of the situation? Maybe, maybe not. And that could have been revisionism by me regarding Thomas Frank. But there must have been better options than Igor Tudor for sure. This is a reflection of the Tottenham board more than anything. Tudor will find a job elsewhere and potentially do a decent job. Potentially, depending on if a club wants him and if he wants to get back into football. And the Tottenham board have a lot of questions to answer and will be under a lot of pressure. You can't make a choice like that when you're battling relegation against West Ham and Nottingham Forest. You just can't. The issues at Tottenham have been going on since, well, a long time, but last year was probably a turning point. Yes, they won the Europa League against a crap Man United with a wannabe criminal fortune teller in charge, but their league performance was shocking under Ange. Absolutely shocking. They finished 15th, 17th in the league. And I thought this year would actually be different. With Frank in charge, they almost won the Super Cup against PSG, but they went back to default Spurs settings and bottled it. They should have won that final and they lost. And again, injuries haven't helped the situation, but the players haven't been useful at all. And this squad is not a relegation-worthy team on paper at all, in my opinion. at all. But something isn't working at that club, and we've been saying this for years. Conte said it, Mourinho said it, Tudor came in and pretty much said it, but something isn't working at that club, and it's most likely a mentality and culture thing. And it's also intriguing because Frank was more like a nice teacher and not too strict. You can get along with him. He's empathetic. He he's a people pleaser. He understands people. Whereas Tudor was a strict, blunt, and no coddling teacher. And the funny thing is, neither approach seemed to work with these players. And they went from one end of the spectrum to the other, and you could argue things actually got worse under Tudor. Tudor's man management style should have been a factor in his appointment, but I think the board were just panicking and hoped for the best. They saw that he has an instant impact at these clubs, such as Juventus and Marseille, and thought that maybe he could do the same thing here. But that obviously wasn't the case, as we all found out. And speaking of his man management, for example, Kinski against Atletico Madrid in the first leg. He was thrown into the deep end, his first match in like a year or something. And it's against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League knockout rounds in the first leg, away from home. He made, 2 mistakes, and then he got substituted and thrown under the bus by Tudor. Tudor didn't even greet him or anything. He went straight down the tunnel, and he probably cried. And then I think he came back to the bench, but yeah, I don't know if Tudor managed to settle that down behind the scenes after the match. But yeah, that's just a very visible public example of his man management style and not having that sort of compassion, and essentially not admitting he made a mistake putting Kinski in goal. But Tottenham are in deep trouble, and a relegation battle with players who don't seem to have the heart for the battle is not a good sign. And hiring and then sacking a manager within 60 days, less than 50 days, shows that you made a dire mistake. And a run of fixtures where you could barely see a win or two depending on who they hire it's not a good situation. It's deep and it gets real. So let me know your thoughts about Igor Tudor's sacking and whether it's the right decision. Do you think Tottenham will get relegated? And who should be in charge now? I'm hearing Harry Redknapp, but I don't think that's the right call. I think the Dyche signal needs to be activated. And sure, Dyche, whether he's willing to be an interim, should take charge and try to keep Tottenham in the league. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Goodbye.